Hello everyone, this is John Mervin, and in the spirit of Star Wars, today I'm going to show you how to make a space galaxy. So let's not chit-chat any longer, let's just jump right into it. Okay, so to start out, I'm going to be doing this in the Blender engine. You could do it easily in Cycles, and it'd probably even look better, but just because this is what I did the title intro in, and it'll look great. So first, what we're going to need for this is a bunch of images, like smoky images like this. Like we have a Milky Way backdrop of space, and then a variety of smoke floating in the air. So the great thing about NASA is that its pictures are completely open to use, like this one right here from the Hubble. So you can use this without any problems. And then you got smoke images. So first off, I'm going to enable an add-on so that we can just quickly import the images, and the add-on is import image as planes right there. So I'm gonna enable that, and then I'm going to import the image as planes. What? Space tutorial, new folder. Get all of these. Import the images. Alright, so before we can actually use our images, first off we have to clean them up a bit, excuse me. They have to be black all around the edges. So we can clean this up right in Blender actually. We're gonna go over to the UV image editor. Pull this one up. And let me just full size this. And go right into the paint tool. And just, want to do the other way. Turn it down to black. And then just paint out the edges. All the edges. Because that's going to be distracting later. Then maybe turn down the opacity and get a little bit inland, just to ease it out. It actually doesn't look that bad though, just anyways. And then you'll want to save the image as well. Alright, so once you do that, we're going to go to this next step. And this technique is actually the same one used for the closing title sequence of Star Trek Into Darkness. That's actually where I got the idea from this, is I saw a brief clip of how he did it, and I thought, hey, I can do that in Blender. So here's what we're going to do. I'll start out with this one and hide everything else. Whoops. Hide everything else. There we go. And then I'm going to go in and subdivide it like crazy. 10, maybe another. Yeah, there we go. Or maybe not. And then you just add some displacement. Turn on the proportional editing and just do all sorts of loppy, clumpy goodness. You just want it to look uneven. Smooth that out. And then what you're going to do, let me take that down, turn that back to a timeline. Then what you're going to do is you're going to go in and add a subdivision surface, and then add even more displacement. Displace. There we go. Add a new texture for that. Let's go over and find this texture. Make it a cloud. And then just bring its size down a little bit, because we want it to be kind of fine. Maybe not that small. And turn that strength down a bit. That's kind of... So we got this nice and lumpy, smoky. So now we got this nice and uneven. So we're going to go into the materials, and once again you can do this in Cycles, but I'll just show you right here. Turn off the specular. Turn off shade. Do you want to turn off shadeless? Yeah, you do. You'll want to turn off shadeless and turn on transparency. Switch it to Z transparency. Turn the alpha all the way down. So then you'll want to go over to the image texture, and under here, under image sampling, click calculate, and then show alpha, and that's going to make anything that's black the alpha. It turns the picture into the alpha matte. That's what I'm trying to say. Then you'll want to select the alpha, turn it oh, no, you don't want to turn it all the way down. You want to turn off color, though. So now we should have... Let me switch over to the shading to be GLSL. So now we can just go right in. And of course, if you move it around too much, it's going to break the illusion, like this. But within a small degree, you can move it around. And what we're going to do is... we're going to layer it, and you can't actually see this in the real-time viewport. You could see it in Cycles, of course. Ugh. So now with the camera position, we'll just see what that looks like. Got a smokiness. And, whoa, that looks terrible. But that's okay, because we're just going to layer it up. And that basic technique is what we're going to do, but we're just going to layer it in a bunch of different complex ways. Okay, so I find a good space image like this one looks good as a backdrop. Instead of just like layering a bunch of smoke, because that's hard to do and get it nice. But just scale this up like crazy and make sure it's far away, because whenever it's moving, if it's too close, it breaks the illusion. Maybe something like that. So that way, whenever it moves around, you see it stays stationary, and so it looks like it's, miles and miles away. Looks like it's in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. Yeah. So turn that to shadeless, and then let's see how that looks. Hey, look at that. How do you like them apples? So now we're just going to scale this up and do this a bunch more times to a bunch of other planes. I might even just time-lapse this. Alright, so now I've added a variety of clouds and planes, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did. For this one, instead of just using the color right there, which would make it very monochromatic, I added a simple cloud texture and added a little bit of variance in it, so you see there's like light orange and then a little bit darker and stuff, and so that's going to add a nice look. I want to talk a bit about the camera flying through it, because that's important. So whenever the camera is just flying through, like right here, if you just leave that as is and rendered it, it would draw attention to the cut. For this first one right here, we're going to keyframe the alpha influence of the texture, so that for the first frame you can't see it when it flies through. I found that looks nicest. So right here, we want this alpha to be 0. We're going to hit I, then maybe 2 frames ahead, maybe 1 frame. Had to be 100. Or just 1, actually, I think works. Yeah. And actually for right on it, I think I might go to 0. Let's see, what frame does it actually pass through? That one. Can't even see it there. So yeah, so for that one, it's going to be 0. Then the next one will be 50% or 0.5, I guess. Keyframe it. So whenever it flies through, it's going to be transparent and then looks like it just pulls right through it. And that'll be good. For this next one, I actually positioned it so that the camera flies through this black part next to this little swirl right here. And so we don't need to keyframe that because it's going to be transparent anyways. And I think that'll look quite nice. We'll see though how it renders. So another thing I noticed when I was playing around with this is that you kind of want the clouds to be against the edges of it. If you have it kind of like this blue one where it's just floating in the middle, and if you had a bunch that were floating in the middle, it would look, well, the blue one, it can get away with it, I think. But other ones, if you don't have anything around the edges, it doesn't look like it continues outward. It just looks like a little floating mess in front of the camera. And so for ones like that, you would want to position it, I'll hide everything else so you can see. You want to position it like big and have lots of it off camera. so it looks like it's cut off, so it looks like it just reaches on for a long time, you know? Let's see how that looks. Might change the... I think I'll just keep this one, Alt-H. Change the color of it a bit. Hit 2, and then just change this to a different shade of green. Yeah. Yeah. It's a colorful galaxy. Alright, so next what we're gonna... Oh yeah, let's save this while we're at it. So next we're gonna save this, because you'll want to save frequently, always, and always. Tutorial. Space. Tutorial. So just save that, and save. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is add a star field in the middle of this. Oh, and another thing, you know what, that I didn't do in this, but I did in my final thing, is add some warping to this. Nothing fancy, just have the proportional editing on to the smooth, and just bring it down. You know, give it a bit of dimension to it. Pull it up. A little bit of something. I don't know if you really noticed much on it on the camera, but it looks nice, I think. And go to the end and make sure that it scales up and doesn't leak out of the frame anywhere. Maybe add some rotation. So that, just so that it adds a little bit more perspective to it, I think looks nicely. Okay. So next we're gonna add a star map. Star field, I guess, a star dome. And so for that, you'll just want to add a cube. Where's the cube? There he is. Find the cube. And scale it up inside of everything. Make it nice and big. And then you'll want to add a particle system for this. Add a new, set it to particles, and set all of it to start at 1. You want to emit from the volume, random. Let's see what else. Set the lifetime to be over the whole thing, I guess 200. Set the number up to maybe 3,000. Oh, we need more than that. Oh, 300. Okay. 3,000. I don't even know. Maybe 5,000. Oh, and turn off any physics for them so that they just stay locked in space. And this is just going to add a little bit more to it. So for the rendering of this box, you'll just want to set it to halo and set the size down on this to like tiny, because you don't want to see these at all. You don't want to see these as anything but white dots because it looks pretty terrible. Let's see. I don't know if I can find any specifically. There should be one like right around here-ish. Oh, there's one. Maybe turn the hardness down on them. There's one right here that I'm testing on. Oh yeah, I can see those more now. Actually, turn the hardness up on those. Now that I think about it, it looks better. The hardness is basically going to control the gradient of the inside to the outside. You know how much gradient there is, and you want that size to be even smaller, like 0.005. Maybe not that small. 0.05. Not that big. 0.02. That looks nice. And then maybe just set this brightness up so they're nice and bright. Flare? What does that do? Let's find out. I don't see any difference. Alright, so this is getting close to rendering. Let's find a good frame and then do a demonstration render. So we're going to jump over to the compositing, and we're going to composite this bad boy. Output, viewer, fill. Hey Phil, I need a viewer. Backdrop. I want a backdrop to this. So add a viewer, add a composite, add a backdrop. And what we're going to do is turn up the contrast on this and turn up the vibrance. Or in this they call it what is it? Saturation, yeah. So maybe just actually first, you know what? Why don't you just add a S curve? It's just a plain old RGB curves. Bump up the white, take down the black. Just add a bit of contrast. And then add a bit of just barely boost up the saturation. That's probably too much. I think I may have did it a little too much in my final thing. And then one other thing that we're going to do is add a bit of, I don't even know what to call it, but okay, first off, add a mix node and then set it to overlay. And this is going to boost up any colors that are within this. And so it's going to boost up the green or the blue if you have it over at blue or yellow or whatever. That looks kind of cool, actually. That looks really cool. Okay, I'm just playing around right now. Instead of just boosting it up by a different color, like if I want to have some of one color like the blues and then some of another color like the reds and the yellows, I needed to do that individually. But I was thinking, how should I go about doing that? And then I thought about overlaying on itself so that the colors just individually brighten up. And that does a little bit. First off, the background's too black. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. For the background image, you'll want to turn the contrast on that down. Since in the compositing, in the post, we bump up the contrast so much, you want to just take it down a little bit, and that way everything's on an even playing field, see? In dullness. And that way up here, when we re-input it, it'll look a bit better. Ideally, it should look a bit better. But instead of, let me just bring that darkness up a little bit. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, instead of overlaying just on itself, I thought, what if you overlay onto just the general colors? So add a blur node and put it on the second one, is that a fast Gaussian? And then blur it. And then overlay onto that. And I've found that that adds, like if we just see this as it is, it's just a very plain old color map. But whenever you overlay onto that, it adds a kind of misty, hazy quality while still keeping the sharpness in some areas. There's, what happened to all my contrast? Now just play around until you find your liking. That's looking better. Oh, and these render super fast, so you can even do a test render right here and see how it looks. I think I might do that real quick. Alright, so that finished rendering, and we can see what it looks like right here. And it's looking pretty good and colorful. And it just occurred to me that I forgot the spinning galaxy part of the tutorial in my original. So I'm just going to add that real quick. You can show you how easily you can adjust and change this. Just add an image as plane and go to this, which one? No, it's not there. Is it under here? Whirlpool Galaxy, there it is. So add this image, which is another NASA one. Gotta love NASA. And then, you know, do the usual, set it to shadeless. Actually, yeah. So just add this as an image as plane, set it to shadeless, and also enable transparency and select Z transparency. But instead of using that, we're going to use a blend. We're going to use a blend texture. And you'll want to show the alpha for that and enable this to enable alpha. But instead of just doing, you know, a blend gradient, we're going to set it to be circular. Or spherical, excuse me. Basically what it's going to do, I can't figure out how to display it right here. But it's going to make the center visible and make the edges transparent, just like that, except that's stretched. I never understood why the plane display is always distorted. Maybe somebody knows why. It's kind of useless though. But I guess this rendering is outdated anyway. But you'll want to enable the ramp for that and just adjust it to your liking. You want to bump it up a little so that the edges aren't visible. And then what we're going to do for this one is subdivide it a ton and then add a shape key is what we're going to do. And in this shape key, you could do this a lot better, by the way. This is super quick and sloppy. But we're going to select the one that's kind of over the center star. And then we're going to add or enable proportional editing and then just rotate it. And turn down that and just rotate it. So we get this motion with it right here. And so what we do in the final thing, let me just keyframe this right here, is that we're going to keyframe the actual rotation of the mesh so that the mesh is rotating like that. And then secondary to that, we want the center to be rotating a little bit faster than the outside so that it looks more like this, where the center rotates. And there's other problems in there as well, you know, like it scales downward, like it shrinks and then grows. Small details like that. If you wanted to, you could get around it, but it's really okay. And so then you just add this into the scene. Okay, so I forgot something. You'll want to change this right here, this rotation, to be quaternion? Quaternion? I don't know how to pronounce that. And I'm not even sure why or how it works. I'm not familiar with that. But it makes it easier to get the weird angles on this. So like, let me just redo this. You'll want to rotate this to be something like that. Or like, instead of just having it flat, you can rotate this at a fun angle. And then you go to the normal rotation. And you're going to rotate along that. So if you set this to be any weird angle and set the rotation down here to be normal, you can keyframe the rotation right there and then go to the end and rotate it on the Z, local Z axis. So hit Z twice and then you rotate it like so, enable rotation. And then there's no problems at all with how it's moving. I'm just gonna set those to be all linear because, man. T linear, so that it's just a steady spin of a galaxy. I know galaxies don't spin that fast. Maybe this is like a space time lapse or something. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool. So now you just add that into the scene. Let me Shift H so you can select this. So now you just move that into the scene and you can Shift H to see its position like that, so it kind of whooshes by it. Whooshes is a word. It's like whooshes, but there's like a V at the start of it, so it's whooshes. So it whooshes by it in the beginning, and then just render it out and see how it looks. So in my original, this is what I did. I just rendered the camera flying out of letters. I just rendered the camera flying out of a word. See, just like that, super duper simple. And this is just a text thing. Like you could even just set this to be anything. And then just have the camera like, make sure the camera is on something, white. Once you do that, you go over to the compositor. You just take the alpha of the image and then put it into an invert, and then you have this cutout of a word. Then you render that out, and then you have this just cutout overlay, and then you overlay it onto your space using an alpha over. I said overlay so many times in that sentence, but that's how you achieve that effect, and then you're done. So go out and make your spacey Star Wars animations. You could even do this for more than just space. You could do this for like clouds, or have like a sky dogfight or something. Alright, on a completely unrelated note, but for those of you who've been following along on my blog, my short film is being released shortly. I'm so excited. It is officially going to be released on the 28th. So you can check that out if you're interested, and yeah, have a good day.